Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we'll be talking about the official system requirements for Star Wars Battlefront and what do you really need to run it. Star Wars Battlefront is to be released on 17 November 2015 in PS4, Xbox One and PC. People pre-ordering the game will be able to get access a week earlier. With that being said, let's take a look at the parts we need to run Star Wars Battlefront. The graphics of Star Wars Battlefront is great and it has been a very optimized game as far as the beta is concerned. So you'll be able to play the game just fine as long as you have a decent budget to mid-range gaming build. For CPU, the minimum requirements are Intel Core i3-6300. It's a 6th gen Core i3, but any Core i3 from the 3rd generation known as Sandy Bridge should be able to play the game just fine. Dual-core CPUs had some issues with the game and many people wasn't able to run the game properly on dual-core CPUs. So if you're running a dual-core processor, then maybe it's time to move on to an Intel Core i3 or Core i5. Surprisingly, no AMD processors were suggested in minimum requirements, but you'll be able to play the game just fine with a FX 6300 or AMD Athlon X4 860K. Both the CPUs will be able to play the game in medium settings with over 30 FPS at all times with a decent graphics card. For recommended CPU, you have the Intel Core i5 6600. So any Core i5 from the 3rd and 4th generation will be able to play the game at high to ultra settings without a problem. You don't need a Core i7 because the game is quite optimized. Like the minimum requirements, no AMD CPU was suggested as recommended, but you'll be able to play the game at high to ultra settings with the FX 8350 at 1080p. For RAM or memory, the minimum requirements is 8GB and the recommended is 16GB, but playing the game in beta made a little to almost no difference when playing on 8 and 16GB. So you don't need more than 8GB of RAM for playing Battlefront even at high settings. For hard drive, the game requires 40GB of hard drive space, but you have to keep in mind that games like this will have a few DLCs, so you'll need a bit more than this. Now let's dive into the most important part, the graphics card. For GPU, the minimum requirements from Team Green is the GTX 660 and from Team Red HD 7850. So people with a budget graphics card like the GTX 750 Ti will be able to play the game just fine in low to medium settings at 1080p. From AMD's side, HD 7850 is somewhat similar to the newer generation R7 265. So people with the R7 265 or the R7 260X will be able to run the game at medium settings at 1080p. For recommended GPU, we have the GTX 970 from Nvidia and R9 290 from AMD. Both are high-end GPUs and will be able to play the game at ultra settings without a problem at 1080p. But people with GPUs like the GTX 960 and the R9 380 will be able to play the game at high settings at 1080p without a problem at a decent frame rate. For OS, you need to be on Windows 7 or Windows 8 64-bit. It's good to see optimized games like Star Wars Battlefront and we have to wait for the release to be exactly sure about what we need to run it. Also, I'll be doing a video on which edition of the game you should buy next week. So don't forget to subscribe for that, hit that thumbs up button and I'll see you in the next one.